So the Michelin star chef decides he's going to fix this. He's had enough. And he goes into the kitchen, he pulls out the most expensive ingredients in the world, and he sweats for 10 hours to make this dish. It's beyond 3 Michelin stars, and he takes it out to the head waiter, and he sits it down, and he says, right, this is as good as it gets on planet Earth. Tell me what you think. And the waiter tries some, and he goes, yeah, tastes like chicken.
Fantastic. The gift that keeps on giving.
The gift that keeps on giving. The gift of comedy.
Indeed. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's digital download. I'm the editor this week, which is very nice. Well, nice for me, and not necessarily nice for everyone else. Anyway, as you know, today we are talking about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because this big sort of anomaly that goes on in the modern world, where it seems that the word entrepreneur is bandied around so much. Anyone who works for themselves is an entrepreneur. Anyone who runs a business is an entrepreneur. Anybody that gets made redundant from corporate life and then has to go out on their own is an entrepreneur. So first of all, what is an entrepreneur? How does an entrepreneur differ from normal people like you and me? So go on, Tim, what do you think?
Well, I've always thought an entrepreneur was that. I mean, we debated it here internally. I think, there was 6 of us and we came up with 7 definitions. For me, an entrepreneur is someone that starts a business and starts something from scratch. That's what I've always thought.
And any more? Anyone else got a thought on what an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I don't think it's about. I don't think it's necessarily. Clearly, the output is a commercial machine. That could be commercial, however you define it. There are entrepreneurs that have started charities. There are entrepreneurs that have started impact businesses, and all of that. For me, entrepreneurship and an entrepreneur is someone who's a certain spirit, a drive, and is able to connect dots. In a way that maybe, there are many brilliant managers out there who have had a 40-year career in management. They come into work, they do their thing, they're fantastic. We need them. They're great at what they do. And we need millions and millions and billions of brilliant managers. There are other managers who do that for a few years and say, do you know what? I think if we connected that and that and that, I think we could actually create something. And that... I've worked, some of the best entrepreneurial minds I've ever worked with aren't entrepreneurs by definition of have started their own businesses. I've worked with brilliant entrepreneurial thinking people who work in big corporates and have done their whole life, but they've got a fantastic entrepreneurial spirit. They can join up dots. They can see through sectors and industries and see things that don't exist, create them and actually make them a commercial thing. So I think yeah, you have to be able to spell entrepreneur. Yeah.
I'm out.
So simply the act of, as you said, you fall in hard times, you get made redundant, you start your own company. Does it make you an entrepreneur? I don't know. I think there's a sense and a spirit and a drive and a bit of connectivity and being able to see things differently in the world to be able to take that step forward and move into that.
You were going to say something, I think, as well, Tracy, weren't you?
Yeah, and it's in line with what Eric was sharing, because to me, entrepreneurship has this feeling of creation, right? Like I'm creating something. And so, like when I was in university, I had a friend who bought a Subway franchise, right? And so technically he's a business owner, but he's not really creating anything. He's just like propagating the brand. Now, I love me a good Subway sub, so that was awesome, especially in university. But to me, that doesn't really fall along the lines of entrepreneurship. Even like I had a conversation early on in my business with a gentleman who just wanted to start a business online. Right? And he had an online store and he mined Bitcoin and he just was like trying to be in business online, but he wasn't trying to create something new. He was trying to just do something to make money online. So in my opinion, I think we're all talking opinions this morning. There's that like creating something from scratch mentality.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I love the fact. So our chairman, who's also our company accountant, he said about he said about an entrepreneur is somebody that needs an accountant to run along behind them, sweeping up to keep them out of prison. Not that he was suggesting for a moment that these people were crooks, but the fact that they took that leap of faith, they did something which was kind of out there. They run with their instinct. So we have a guest who's coming on now. There's little doubt that this man is an entrepreneur. He started in the telecoms industry, and he founded a plumbing call center which he sold to GE Capital. He then founded a company called Cable Telecom, which he sold to Telstra, the Australian telco. He then founded Network Europe, which he sold to the Daisy Group, which is a large telecoms company. And then, still on the telecoms theme, he founded a company called Paddy and Scott's, which is a coffee company. So entirely different. And he founded that with a friend that he'd met, a small startup coffee company, which fairly quickly became the biggest independent supplier of coffee in the UK, won multiple awards, and is doing some really great philanthropic stuff with the profits and fair trade and all of that. Anyway, I think one thing that we can certainly agree on is that this man is an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the word. So welcome to Scott Russell.
Hello, how are you guys? Thank you.
God.
Yeah, I love that intro. I love it. Some great comments on the side here. Does entrepreneurship taught at school? I don't know, guys. I think I believe in intrapreneurials as well. I think that's really important. And I also, if you break the word down, entre, to follow on. So is an entrepreneur someone that can fail and then get up and do it again? Is an entrepreneur somebody that can build a business, learn from that, and build another one? And I think that I'm on my 5th company. I've never ever worked for anybody else. So from the age of 16, when I left school, I've only ever worked for myself. So I've never heard that term, can I ask my boss? I wonder what, that's beyond my pay grade. I've never used that term. But yeah, I think entrepreneurialism is about building, rebuilding. And if you fall over, don't care. Don't worry. You can get up and you can do it again. That's the true mark of an entrepreneur, in my humble opinion.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And the thing that I love about your story, and we see it with a number of famous entrepreneurs, when you watch a program like Dragon's Den, which is full of these mega successful entrepreneurial business people, and some of them seem like they are pretenders to the throne. They've started a business, they've made a fortune, they've exited the business. That's it. That's not entrepreneurship. That's having run a successful business. The people that are, in my opinion, entrepreneurs are the ones that go and they do it again and again and again and again and again. And these businesses are not carbon copies of the same business. They're completely different things. And the thing
surely if you do it once or you do it 8 times, you're still an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but you can be lucky. You can be in the right place at the right time.
Lucky entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, you do see it, don't you? When somebody has something which is absolutely what's needed at the right time. They happen to be, as Steve Ballmer, a great example of that. He's not an entrepreneur. He was, the chief exec of Microsoft for a while. One of the richest people in the world. He happened to be in the right place at the right time. Equally, you see people like Elon Musk, who is an entrepreneur. Because he does something and then he does something else and he does something else and he sees an opportunity in a marketplace, whether you love him or hate him, sees something which he thinks can be done differently, stroke better, stroke in a new way. And that's what he rolls up his sleeves and does it.
That's a real entrepreneur,
Scott. And this is probably going to burst my theory. But was it in the Russell bloodline?
Yeah, I think so. My mom and dad were pretty entrepreneurial. When I use that word there, entrepreneurial. So they were market traders. Right. So at a very young age, my brother and I learned the value of money and working hard. But the challenge is, guys, what is success though? Because I'm asked this question a lot, and I have an honorary degree. I've never worked for it. I was given it because I was an entrepreneur. So I've got a little certificate that says I am a proper entrepreneur. And people always ask me, how do you gauge success? And I've got to a stage in my life now where I think it's not just about money. It really isn't about money, because if you can do some pretty cool stuff now and you can start to use your skills to help, we all talk about corporate social responsibility, ESG, but really, guys, an entrepreneur, I think the modern day entrepreneur has a sense of purpose in their doing. I really believe that. And if you can measure success, not just on the size of your wallet, but maybe the amount of school meals you can fund, the amount of people that you can inspire on your. Imagine if success was measured on stamps in your passport. You know, now we're getting in some really cool stuff now.
So tell us that story, Scott. Tell us that story, because we chatted the other day, and you hinted at some of these things that you're doing outside of running a successful business. And it was really inspiring. So tell everybody. So what do you do?
I've got the best job in the world. I create little cups of ambition, little cups of happiness, and this coffee that I produce does some pretty cool stuff around the world. So we decided to break down the supply chain. Coffee is the second most commonly traded commodity in the world. Number one is oil. Number two is coffee. And it's a really elongated supply chain. And I wanted to break it down. And I challenged the chief exec of Fair Trade. I've challenged the chief exec of the Rainforest Alliance. And I just want to know, what are you doing with the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars I have to pay you to put that little stamp on my bag? And I thought I could do it better. So that's exactly what we did. We created our own projects. We've worked with the International Trade Center, which is part of the United Nations, and we're just trying to work out a better supply chain. And guys, you can go to New York and buy a cup of my coffee for $8. And yet less than 1 cent of that goes back to the farmer. There's something not right. There's something not right there. And we challenged that 10 years ago, and I'm on that journey. So don't gauge my. I thank you, Adam, for saying it's one of the best coffee companies in the UK. And we do produce over 80,000 cups of coffee per day. But the profit we're making, because we're a profitable company and we have to be. I'm a die-in-the-wall capitalist, but just gauge me on what I do with that now. And I think true entrepreneurs will look at that profit and they'll say, how can I make the world a better place? And it sounds all wishy-washy and ikigai and all that sort of rubbish. But guys, if you can do something that you love, and you can do something that the world needs, and you can do something that makes money, to me, that's utopia. Yeah. That's utopia, entrepreneur.
So explain what some of those projects are for everybody. So you've spoken about how you wanted to do some things around the world, but you told me some of these the other day when we spoke, and it's like, it's one thing to talk about it, and we hear this all the time from corporates. Well, of course, we're putting money back into the environment, and they're not, or they are dripping stuff there. But you actually, you are at the sharp end of making a difference and changing people's lives, aren't you?
Yeah, we do. And, doing good is good for business. I genuinely believe that. And I think that if your company has a sense of purpose that you live and you die by, then your team believe in that. And I don't pay the best wages, but people work for my company because they want to work for my company. We win corporate accounts because people want to be part of that journey. So the whole idea, the concept of Paddy and Scott's is to share the retail margin with the growers. It's as simple as that. If someone's spending $3, $4, $5 on a cup of coffee, I think that we have a responsibility to share that with the people and the communities and the supply chain and the children. Now, when I first turned up at our farm, there was kids running around and there was a little mud hut.
Hold on a sec. Your farm. Yeah, talk about that first. Okay.
I'm all excited. So
too much coffee.
I didn't like what I saw. So I went to Africa, East Africa. I actually went around the world. Ended up in some really cool places, but finally ended up in East Africa. And I met a brilliant family called the Machomba family, and they just needed some guidance, some investment. And we looked at their farm project, and I could have bought the farm, but I didn't want to do that. So basically, I've taken on a 10-year lease on this project, and at the end of it, I will hand the project back to the family for $1. And that's my commitment. And during that time, I will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars making this the best farming project the world has ever seen. Don't take my word for that. Take the United Nations report on our project. The white paper's there. You can Google it. You can read it there. I won't go into that. So the whole idea is then what do people need? Not only do they need homes, they need food, they need the children need a school. So let's run this. Let's run the water in. Let's do it ourselves. But don't get a contractor in. I've still got the scar on my hand where I was digging the channel for the water. Let's build a school not for 60 kids, but for 500 kids. Let's do it. Let's get corporates behind this business and let's do it. Let's get it done. Then we said, well, how can we make it even better than that? So we got our corporate customers to be involved in the project. We got those guys to big corporates that you'll know about, Marriott, Green King. These are companies now that are supporting and helping grow this project. And I think if we can do it in East Africa, we can do this around the world. And I think we can make coffee a much more sustainable, profitable business for the people actually growing it. Because if we don't do it, guys, and here's a warning now, people will stop. They will stop growing coffee. So we will lose that. And that will just push commodity prices up. The big do you know what, guys? I think just doing good stuff is good for business.
Scott, the 1 penny from $8 cup, going back to the farmer, the 1 penny. What's the ambition?
Well, I'd like to make most of the profit go back, and then that's what I would like to do. But I can't. There is this white savior syndrome. It's very complex. There are tribes. There are cultures. You can't just come in. You build a school, then the neighbouring schools, they want to move in. It's really hard. It sounds great, and I'm running around and I'm ambitious, but you have to learn the culture as well. So eventually, I'd like to take the lead of Patagonia. I'd like to take my company and hand it over and say, there you go, guys. That's the world's best coffee company. That's what we're going to do. At the moment, we are a for-profit business, and I say that with pride. And then challenge me on stage. Don't mind, challenge me on what we do with that profit. And I think that's something that's not for this conversation, but perhaps for another conversation.
Cool.
Brilliant.
So Scott, we've had a question. For some reason or other, Shelley Jeffcoat's name isn't displaying. When did you shift your strategy from profit to supporting more ESG efforts? Was that a decision when you were establishing the business, or something you shifted to after some time?
No, it's an entrepreneurial trait. Let's go back to the core reason why we're here today. As an entrepreneur, you'll have gut feelings. As an entrepreneur, I won't look at a balance sheet. As an entrepreneur, I'll think, Christ, how do I promote my product? And it just makes sense. If you see a child fall over in the street, you will pick that child up. You will make sure they're okay. And it's that mindset that you apply to your business. So I realize now, if everybody enjoys what they're doing who works at Paddy and Scott's, and we're a reasonable sized business, then it will create a successful business. It will create a successful proposition. So no, it's always been embedded because it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to put it into a spreadsheet. I'm not going to try and justify that. And I'll challenge you. It's just the right thing to do. I trade in people's lives, and I do. In tech, I'm distracted from it. In tech, it either works or it doesn't. If it works, people buy it. If it doesn't work, they drop you. You don't need to build up a reputation. Food is really, really difficult to do that. And it's a lot quicker. I've had Paddy and Scott's 15 years. I've never had a business that long. Normally, I've exited within. This is a new place for me to. I'll tell you what, guys, I love it. I really do. I really love it.
So why don't we go back to the beginning then? So your parents were market traders. You started your first business because you couldn't bear the thought of being responsible to somebody else or answerable to somebody else. So take us quickly on your journey of how you got to a guy that had just exited his business, sitting in his local cafe, and someone comes up and says, coffee. And you go, yeah, why not? Because that's a big change from isn't it?
Well, if there's any lawyers listening, it was a restricted covenant. I couldn't go back into tech. So I had to do something that wasn't connected to my company that I just sold. So there was a big check, and money wasn't an issue. It was a great one. It's one of your questions here. How long did it take you to come up with that business? I'll come back to that, Adam. I'll come back to it. But when I invested in the business, I put $5,000 in, chicken feed really for a foundation of a business, but 5,000 quid. And we didn't have a name for this investment, so I just called it Paddy and Scott. So that's why there's a name. How long did you come up with the business name? And we were going to use that business name until such time as we created a brand. But the brand become the people become the brand. And everywhere we peddled our coffee to, they kept saying, is this the Paddy and Scott's coffee? Is this the Paddy and Scott? So it stayed there. So what I wanted to do, Adam, is I'd sold my company to Telstra, one of the biggest companies in the world, and I had 18 million customers when I sold my business. So it was a reasonable sized business. And I was fired within a week of working in Telstra. And the reason why I said I've never had a boss, and I hope they're on the line on one of this call, is that no one would take on the mantle of managing me. So no one would take it on. So they couldn't find a manager to manage me, so they fired me. And they said to me, just go and play golf. Spend your money, Scott. Enjoy it. You're a young guy. Go and enjoy it. And I got into coffee because it's something that I love. It's something I like doing. And it's something I'm really proud of. And I was proud of the money that I earned before, but I probably wasn't proud of what I was doing. It's like a therapy session, isn't it?
No, but I think that the fact that you have been hugely successful, explaining the journey to people and what your learnings have been, because when you look at the TED Talks of people like Ken Robinson, and you realize that people are not getting education in the things that they need in order to be successful in the world that is forming around us. Because all of the kind of formal education comes from old people like us saying this is what it used to be like in my day. And actually, you've had a much more seat of the pants story of success, but actually encouraging people to behave that way is what's going to make more entrepreneurs and more successful people, not studying how IBM built a business 75 years ago, because that's irrelevant in the modern world. So what have you learned along the way to get to where you are?
Well, I'm fortunate I get to give quite a few talks to young, budding business people. I'm not going to call them entrepreneurs. And these range from the age of 12 all the way up to 20, 22. And I do that in schools, and I get to listen to unfiltered comments that you wouldn't put your hand up because you're too embarrassed to ask a question, but these guys won't. So I tell you what, guys, some of the business ideas they've come up with are brilliant. And I think that perhaps we do try to pigeonhole business now into spreadsheets, into lawyers, into, and I get really frustrated with this. You've got to raise 2 million quid now, bootstrap money before you can do it. And I get, these business people cracking open champagne because they've raised 100 grand's worth of debt. They've sold half their business for 100 grand. Now they can go out and make money. I mentored a beach cleaning team that was turning over 11 grand a month, £11,000 a month. These guys were 14 years old. Can you imagine how you can scale that business? And there are 257 beaches around the UK. So I tell you what, if you want to back young entrepreneurs, just talk to them. Give a talk in a classroom, go out and listen to what they're saying and tell the teachers to shut up. Don't interact. Just get the children to talk, get the young adults to talk. And I tell you what, there are some gems out there. I'm really proud. If I was a young entrepreneur now setting up in business, even with the turbulence that's ahead of us, I think there's never a really do. And I genuinely believe that. And my son runs a brilliant marketing agency. He's 23 years old and he's winning business. A 23-year-old kid should not be winning, but he is, because there is no barriers now. There isn't. You can get TikTok superstars that are 10 years old. What would I have paid to reach 10 million people 20 years ago? Tell you what, there's never a more exciting time to be in business. It really is.
There is a bit of a shift, though, in the scholastic regime. Before my son went off to university, just when he was in 5th year, I was quite inspired when he came home and I said, what were you doing today? And he said, well, we're finding out how to start a business. And I said, how do you mean? He said, well, it was all about getting investment and taking ideas through to fruition and hiring staff and setting up and product development and all of that. So it is creeping. I know Noel asked the question, should it be on school? I don't know if that was just a one-off example, but I think it is creeping into schools in some respect now. The fact that, I mean, when I was a kid, I left school in the 80s, and in the area that I lived in, the geography that I lived in, and my sort of like social circumstances, every single person at my school was programmed to go and get a job with a company, either in a factory or in a company, or go to college or go to university. That's what you do. You get married, you have a kid, and you just repeat the cycle, and they'll get a job when they leave school and all of that. The reason I asked the question, Scott, about whether it was in the DNA is because it wasn't in my DNA. I had to learn it from other people and get confidence and the ability, and to learn that actually I was pushed down a certain route where, like in your house, I imagine when you were a kid growing up, the idea of running your own business was normal.
Yeah.
The idea of running your own business was hilarious in my house. That's ridiculous, because you join a company and you get a pension and you get benefits, and that's it for the rest of your life. You die. And I wish to some respect that I'd had that confidence and at least been open and saw the light. Like maybe some of these young kids are actually sitting in that 5th year class going, "Oh, right, so you can do this yourself." That's cool.
Eric, if I could, I want to try to reframe that. So to talk about how maybe some of that entrepreneurship actually is in your blood. Okay,
Ooh.
So I'll share a story about myself, and then I'll bring it back to you. When I went to college, in my last year of college, I realized, oops, I do not have all the credits that I need in order to graduate. And we had something called a blue book. And I went through that blue book and I found this provision in there where you could double up on your senior project and get twice the credit. That's a high risk proposition, because it's one project, but I'm going to get twice the credit. So I used that provision to get the credits that I needed, and I did well on the project, and it worked out very well. When I went to law school, I had a similar kind of situation, which suggests something about my math, but I found another provision where I could double up on my 3rd year project, high risk proposition, but I'll get twice the credit. Okay? So I'll suggest to you that there's something in my DNA that has a higher risk tolerance than the regular person, or the regular, in that case, student. Okay. And I kind of noticed that over the years. And there are things that I think are in your DNA that are really relevant for entrepreneurship. The number one thing is resilience. Okay. That the stuff you did with that thing where you're running through the desert, that is the most that requires a tremendous amount of mental toughness and resilience. And you need that for entrepreneurship. Scott talked about that. It's something I say all the time, which is that you're not an entrepreneur until you become an entrepreneur, which means there's a process of getting knocked down, of actually failing and being able to get back up from that and keep going, which is, critical in entrepreneurship. And I think, that resilience that you have, which is shown in that competition that you did, is actually entrepreneurship in your DNA.
Oh, thank you. I think you're probably right. But my social circumstances growing up, and this general way that I grew up, compressed that a little bit. So I remember when I was a young milk boy, when I was at school, I used to go up at 4:30 in the morning and deliver milk. The farmer told me that he was frustrated because he couldn't find people to come and work for him. Nobody wanted to get up at 4:30 before they went to high school. And I said, well, why don't we try something different? I'll hire them. I'll bring them to you, and I'll tell them it's a great life. You get great tips and all that, and I'll take £1 a week off of each of them. Deal. You get them, and I'll give you £1 a week for everyone that you bring in. So I thought I was a little entrepreneur. But then, of course, when it came time to leave school, my dad said, "You're going to be an electrician. You're going to get a job, and you're just going to be." And I got sucked into a little sort of like sausage machine of just like doing the same thing. And before I knew it, 10 years had passed, 15 years had passed. Anyway.
So how did you cope, Scott, with the fact that so if although Eric didn't fit into the box that his upbringing had put him in, lots of people are in that situation. They go to school, they have careers that are laid out before them. They go to university, they study, they enter that career or apprenticeship or BTEC or whatever it may be. And they go into that career and their future is mapped out. Like Eric said about, you get a job, you get married, you have children, they get a job, they get married, they have children. And, it's this end. So your future is laid out for you. How did you cope with not being scared about the fact that your future wasn't laid out for you? So you left school and it's like, okay, so what do I do? How did you get direction? Because I think there'll be lots of people out there that have a desire to be like you, but wouldn't know where to begin. How do I find something I can do? How can I find something I can throw myself into? It's easy to look back and go, well, of course, you start a social network like Twitter and you become, infinitely famous.
And the next minute you sell it to Telstra.
Yeah.
So how did you stay focused? How did you think, this is worth a try? In the early days?
Yeah, I mean, guys, I left school at 16 and I did an apprenticeship. I studied gemology and jewelry design. So I got an internship to Sir John Cass College. And although I talk about this sort of market trader upbringing, it's, I did have a good couple of years where I had to study and had to learn. I'm building a house at the moment, and my electricians, carpenters, the tilers, the money these boys are earning now is unbelievable. And I've got 4 sons. And do you know what? The guy that's putting the tech into my house and building the electric and the data roof and the solar panels and so forth, they're charging more money per hour than my lawyers. So I tell you what, guys, there is something about a trade. There is something about a backup plan. And then once you've learned that plan, apply what you've learned into what you want to do. But I think we're so hung up, and I keep on saying this, it's not just about making money. It is about having that tertiary, does the world want it? Do you enjoy doing it? Can you make money from it? And if you apply to that, and I think you can do it, don't worry about failing. Everybody says that to you. How many times, you hear it so many times, don't worry about failing, yeah? But let me tell you now, you do absolutely learn more when you fail than you do succeed. Absolutely, and I'll debate that until the cows come home. You learn more money on your failures. And then I remember someone saying to me, "You're not an entrepreneur unless you've had 2 failed businesses." I think very much a US sort of mentality. I don't buy into that, but I do believe that you shouldn't be scared. And if you are scared at the top, you hear this again, then you shouldn't be at the top. Take two ruts down. It's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top, isn't it? No, it's not lonely at the top. You meet so many people to support you on the way there that they're there to support you with you at the top. You don't sit at the top. You don't sit at the top of a pyramid. A business by its definition is plural. So yeah, I think we should teach it in schools. I'm going off at a tangent, sorry. And I think that we should teach entrepreneurism. And I think that no route is a bad route. Absolutely not.
Scott, you mentioned speaking to students, and there were some great ideas that they had. It seems to me the gap between a great idea and a successful venture comes down to execution. So I'm curious about your willingness to be wrong, because in our society, it seems that the only thing worse than doing nothing is being wrong. What are your thoughts around that?
We all talk about our successes. I thought I could walk on water, Rob, and I bought an engineering company called Ensign Technologies. They were a data engineering business, and I just had no idea how to run an engineering company. I didn't understand how the engineers weren't motivated by with those guys. It's about doing a good job. It's about creating infrastructure that works, and their KPIs are based on, if you flick a switch, does it work? Well, I just assumed it would work. So I had a failed business and it nearly bankrupted me. But was I scarred? Absolutely not. And when I say bankrupt, I mean literally no money left in the bank. I've got a wage bill. I had a £90,000 wage bill to pay at the end of the week. And I'm thinking, Christ, do I speak to my mum? Do I go around and, and do I put it on my credit card? What do you do? But no, the resilience is that didn't put me off, because I'm not going to go into manufacturing again. I can tell you that now. And that's something I've learned along the way.
Mm.
So is it fair to say that if you are a person that's looking for that avenue into entrepreneurship, it is a good idea to start looking at your areas of expertise, things that you know very well, and opportunities that might come from that space?
Yeah, I think so. There's no point. You've got to have a passion for something. I really believe that. I think you do need a passion. If you haven't got a passion, you can't fake it. That comes over quite sinister. So you do need to have a passion, and there's loads of things you can be passionate about. So yeah, I didn't have a passion for engineering, for manufacturing. I thought I did. I thought that was the missing piece in my jigsaw, but it was the wrong piece.
Great point.
So Scott, good question for you. Have you ever owned a personalized number plate, registration plate?
Yeah, TWAT. I think it says on my number plate. No, I do have one. Absolutely. I have three number plates.
Go on, tell the story about closer. That's a great story.
I can't believe you raised this. I can't believe. Okay, it's very, very, very quickly, guys. I assume this audience goes around the world, but number plates are quite expensive. And I saw this number plate once when I was a young sales guy called Closer, C10SER, Closer. And I wanted that. On my car. And I saw it as an auction in Birmingham. And I went there with I thought I'd pay £5,000 for this. And the bidding started. And it went 5, 7, 12, 21, 30. And it just carried on going. And I just walked out of the auction despondent. And I couldn't believe how much somebody paid for Closer. So I went onto the DVLA and I said, look, is it possible to buy it? This is an entrepreneur. Is it possible to buy it now before the auction had finished? And they've said, no, this is up for auction today. You can't buy it. But what I do have is C10SED, closed. And I went, wow, is that for sale? They went, yes, it is. And I said, and I was driving my car hands-free. I pulled over and I went, right, how much can I buy it for? And I £195, so 600 quid. And I was at a sales conference at the Celtic Manor, and I turned down an offer for £50,000 for that number plate. So I still have it. I don't have it on my car anymore. It's on a retention certificate. I think even me, with my ego the size of a house, couldn't drive around with closed on my number plate. But yes, Adam, I do have and it's not on my personalised space at work. Mark, as one of the questions come through. Absolutely not. My CEO wouldn't allow it. I love that. Love that story.
Brilliant.
He's got C0FFEE33 coffee.
Yeah, not quite. But
he'll be straight onto the DVLA when we're done today.
Yeah.
Have you got coffee?
Trying to buy it, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, has anyone else got any more questions for Scott?
What's next?
I've got some great ideas actually. I think the wine industry has got some legs. I think British wine has got a fantastic opportunity. I think that with one of the issues of climate change is that we are growing some pretty good wines now in the UK. I think that's pretty exciting. I love digital media. I play a very small part in my son's company, and I'm unbelievably impressed of how they put campaigns together based on, hotspots on screen, time of day, demographics. And these are unbelievably switched on kids that are just creating some amazing stuff. So I think the space that you guys are in is really, really exciting. But at the end of the day, I don't really care about money. I've made enough money. I don't need any more money. I'm okay. I think I can survive the crisis. So anything I do will be based on what I want to do and what I want to do for the world. And I say that honestly from the heart. So, if I can build another 10 more schools, then I'll do that. If I can build an infrastructure to give back, then I'll do that. And I'm doing that now.
Cool.
Thank you. Brilliant. Lovely. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Scott. Absolutely fantastic. And I mean, judging by all the questions that we've got from the audience, they loved having you on as well. So thank you. And
it's absolutely my pleasure, guys. Yeah, thank you. And I did make the tech work as well, actually. I did make the tech. I was really impressed with myself. I did, even though I did need some condoling.
Now there's an idea.
I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you and leave you. Go on, carry on. Sorry, cool. I talked over you.
No, Mark put wine-flavored coffee in there. So I was going to say, Mark, don't offer it. Sell that idea to Scott. He's in business.
Waffy. It's the next big thing.
Mark, I tell you what, though, guys, we're doing this coffee that you mature in whiskey barrels, and it takes on the flavour of whiskey. So you let it infuse for about 3 months, about 12 weeks. And the coffee that we're producing is quite unusual taste. It's proper, it's real, it's authentic. So we're having some fun with some whiskey flavoured coffee. But Mark, no, not wine flavoured. Don't ruin the wine. Don't ruin it. Coffee is a day wine. Don't ruin it.
Mark Howison is a whiskey fanatic, so he'll be all over that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks for all the comments, guys, as well. It's lovely to see those coming through. I'm going to leave you with your hosts now. I've got to pick up my kids from a sports fixture. So I'm going to skedaddle now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you so much. God, thank you.
See you later. Take care. Bye-bye. I'll let you turn me off.
What a great guest.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
Really, I like, who was it? Mark said, infectious. That enthusiasm for what it is that he does. And I think that certainly for me, the fact that you are kind of captain of your ship on the ocean and you can point it in any direction, having some into somebody that's done it and been really successful, but not once through a bit of luck, but successful again and again and again and again and again in what they've done. And the learnings that we can get from that, I think are really valuable.
Oh, big time.
And I think, I took my daughters, well, they're technically still in the public school system, but I took them out of our local town public school system and put them into a charter school. And in that, it's a sustainability focused charter school. And in that school, they work in teams, they work on projects, they learn design thinking. So I can't remember whose point it was. I think maybe it was Eric. It is starting to creep in, I really think too slowly, into the school systems that we need to teach these kids how to work together, work on projects, to fail forward. That was a conversation they had. My daughter actually had, being new to this, as a 6th grader, being new to the school, she was very concerned about, failing and getting in trouble for different things. And they had to tell her, no, if even when we fail, we're going to just get back up and we're going to see what we can do to make it better, but we're going to do that together. So I think those are great lessons for kids to learn that are very applicable to, the world today.
Rob's got the manual.
Rob's got the Haynes manual.
I taught entrepreneurship at the high school level. It was an elective. And not many students took it, and it was a half-year elective. But there are opportunities. Unfortunately, they are few and far between, because school was not set up to inspire entrepreneurship. School was set up to inspire people or to train people to be able to work in the factory and take orders.
Yeah.
And how we execute on school these days is still all around conforming and following orders, not thinking for oneself. So even the entrepreneurship class and the things that I try and integrate into the college students I'm teaching now, it's more done through skunkworks than it is through formal practice.
Wait a minute, what? what was that term you used? Skunkworks or?
You've never heard of a skunkworks project?
No, I don't. That's
It's-
please elaborate on that.
It's a term used in Search of Excellence.
Okay. Yeah,
I didn't know
heard
it
of
was
that.
from there. I just know that when you're trying to get something done in your in my experience, it was in corporate America. When you're trying to advocate for a project that has no support and you're just doing it on your own, you're doing it under the radar. It's a skunkworks project.
Yeah, it was the CIA skunkworks that produced the SR-71 Blackbird, wasn't it? Under the radar of everybody else, and it got to being produced, indeed, without anyone knowing about it.
Very interesting.
And just on a little admin point, in case I forget before we go, anyone who's appearing as LinkedIn user on this platform, if you want to drop me a little note, I can send you an easy link. It's just 3 steps to fix that. It's really easy, so that you'll appear with your picture and your name. Just drop me a little note and I'll send you the link. It takes 10 minutes to do it.
So,
and
Jelly Jeffcoat is the person that's.
Yep, and it takes 5 minutes.
She's coming on a paired link, so she's not looking at my profile. She's looking at someone else.
I think she's probably on mine.
Right.
There's something wonderful. I mean, entrepreneurs have changed the world, right? I just think maybe not in changing the world, but what he's going to do with the profits from this business. Ben Francis, 14 years old, sitting in his room, started selling.
What's your last name, Eric?
Eric Doyle, Doyle, and it's got FISP after it. So so you can find me there, and I look like this.
That is exactly what it looks like.
Fun fact, and I'm not just reaching for profile views here, right? But my daughter's a fantastic graphic designer, and I said, "Can you give me a photograph for my profile?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "I found one that I really like, but unfortunately, you're wearing headphones, cans. So I've taken those cans off." And I've put someone else's ears on, so the ears on my profile picture are not.
Are they better or worse than your ears?
Whose ears?
They're slightly lower than my own ears are, but I've grown to like them. So whoever donated those ears to my profile picture, thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
boy.
So I was
That's
told
wonderful.
by somebody that I had to have my profile is here, and they said I can't use that. There's got to be a top of a head. So they actually basically took a head
Boiled
of
egg.
somebody else.
Boiled egg. Fantastic. Ben Francis.
The
Francis.
magic that is happening. Making
Ben
pictures
Francis
is,
from Birmingham, sitting in his room, buying in sports vests and putting on a little logo on them in his room and selling them at school and selling them at the local markets and at car boot sales, right? His parents said, right, you need to stop all this malarkey now. And he's like, that's fine. I make a couple of £100 a week. It's lovely. And I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to make a global beating sportswear line. And they're like, there's quite enough of them in the world. Have you ever heard of Nike or Adidas or anyone like that? You know, it's pretty big, son. So how about university and a degree and all of that, or get a job? And he's like, I'm going to stick with this. In 2012, he registered Gymshark. They've just been valued at $1.3 billion.
wow.
He's 28 years old.
And what did his parents say to that?
Well done, son.
No, you're misremembering that. I never told you to stop. I never did.
No, they said, Ben, I asked for the Bentley in blue and it's turned up in black. Yeah, $1.3 billion. Now you go to a gym in Scotland. I don't know if it's... they're definitely getting into America now. Gymshark's becoming a thing. You go to a gym in the UK, everyone's wearing Gymshark. Everyone.
I wouldn't know, Eric, having not been to a gym for 25 years.
They're a place where people go and there's exercise machines and weights where you can go and do classes and things like that.
I can imagine nothing worse.
Imagine nothing worse. Well, if you do decide you're going to go one day, you'll probably buy yourself a Gymshark top to go because everybody else.
Fit in perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. $1.3 billion from ironing shirts in a little house in Birmingham with a logo on them and selling them. And now a major powerhouse in global sportswear. Incredible. And he's a lovely guy.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that clearly an entrepreneur, he had a vision, he saw an opportunity, he exploited the opportunity and developed something from scratch. Yeah. And maybe it's that fear of failure. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the thing that precludes people from becoming entrepreneurs. I'm scared because society stigmatizes failures in whatever area. You should have done that better. You did this wrong. Here's a mistake that you made. And actually what we need to do is recognize that it's all part of the learning. There's that lovely story, isn't there, of the guy and I think it was at IBM, and he made a mistake and it cost IBM like $5 million. And he went to see his manager. And he said to his manager, I guess I'd better clear my desk. And the manager said, why? And he said, well, we've just lost $5 million because of this mistake I made. And the manager said to him, and I imagine this is quite rare within that conservative type of company, manager said to him, why on earth would I sack you? You've just had $5 million worth of training. That idea of embracing that learning, as long as you do learn from it. Clearly, if you keep losing $5 million, Tim and I did a talk for a life sciences company on one occasion, and one of the sponsors for the talk that we were giving said, I want you all to embrace this and do this. I sent a tweet and it wiped €1 billion off the market capitalization of the company, and I didn't get sacked. Yeah, he obviously caveated that by saying, what I'm not saying is that I want you all to go out and try and wipe $1 billion off the market cap of the company, but absolutely, it's about trying these things. We try them in social, we should try them in business as well.
Adam, that is so true, and I want to share with you something that I heard that was really thrilling to me. I think it was last week, actually, at the Gartner Symposium Expo, which is targeted to CIOs. And one of the things that was, I've never been to them before, so I don't really know how they approach this thing, but they were really encouraging CIOs to start taking some risks. They're like, you need to start doing things that might fail and allocating budget for it. And I thought, man, this is okay. They're really, because, people who are in these positions, they need somebody like Gartner to say, you should be doing this. They need that, they told me to do it. So I was really encouraged by that. And I know, it's not going to happen overnight, but I do think there will be more CIOs that are taking more risks and looking at projects that they might otherwise not have looked at, because Gartner is telling them, listen, now is the time to take those risks. When the economy, they actually said this, when the economy starts to get wobbly, or there's, that is actually when you're going to get your opportunity to do something that's going to put you ahead of the pack when you come out. And those are the kinds of things that I talk about, and I know other people on this panel talk about all of the time. Gotta start taking some risks. Listen to and work with some innovators. Okay. It's not all about going to the biggest shop that's going to tell you to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. That will get you nowhere. It will get you nowhere. You've got to think and act differently to differentiate yourself in the market. It's absolute must.
I can't think of a more risk-averse member of the C-suite than the CIO. They're all about preventing mistakes and mitigating risk. Maybe the CFO,
Yeah, I was just about to raise your. I see your CFO.
Yeah.
Raise your CFO.
Your CIO with a CFO. Yeah, maybe the CFO. But the interesting thing is, and I don't want to. I'll write about it, and maybe we can talk about it another time. But they were talking about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity was the like, this is, you need this for your brand because people have to trust you. If you're not taking care of cybersecurity, major issue. But then the thing they were talking about in terms of taking risks was talent. Like, talent. And this is the last thing I'll say. They were saying how CEOs are now anticipating slower growth. In other words, they are pulling back their growth expectations because they can't find the talent and supply chain issues. They can't get the raw materials to continue to drive growth, which is pretty remarkable.
But you said about recruitment, and both you and I have written about this recently, Lenwood, this idea that the talk around this, we need fresh talent, we need a new way of thinking, we need to modernize what it is that we're doing. The problem with that is that increasingly the people that are driving organizations are quite conservative in terms of the people that they hire. So, it's ironic that we've got a CMO that's failed. They've not met any of their KPIs, so we're going to sack them. And the way we're going to hire a new CMO is to take out of mothballs the old job description, and we'll give it to the recruiters. And then lo and behold, we hire somebody that looks just like the person that walked out the door. And the problem is that people need to say, we need to throw away our strategy for how we get talent into the organization. We need to look for people that have got a fresh perspective on this stuff, rather than people that have got 20 years experience. Because 20 years experience is really good if it's 20 years experience, 20 different years, not 20 years the same year of experience, which is what it often is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. I mean, the stuff that you learned 5 years ago, it's not applicable today. I mean, maybe the stuff that you learned 2 years ago, and it's a completely different way of thinking that, organization, you've got to start embracing this, because the innovation cycle is moving. So the pace of innovation is actually accelerating. So, to expect that a job will be the same 2 years is about the 18 months to 2 years. That job is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
If you're moving in a progressive way in your organization. So you've really got to change your thinking about how you're acquiring talent. Just as a note, I actually reposted the Gartner session that I watched yesterday on my page. So I'll actually drop a link to it in is
that the one where you said it's download. For HR?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that the one where you said this is essential for all HR folks to watch this?
Yeah, exactly. The interesting thing is they were talking to CIOs. But I said it was essential for HR because I wanted HR to know, hey, you might have a new ally in the CIO. Might want to start talking to them about what you'd like to do, because Gartner's just told them talent strategy. You need to focus on it, CIO. This is what you should be doing. So, the CIO probably has the deepest pockets in the organization. So, and HR may have the most shallow. So, it's, now's a great time to, look for an ally in the CIO to get some things done.
Cool.
Brilliant.
And if all else fails, someone's just posted a lovely dating app that we can all sign up to. It just fried my chat, but it's now disappeared.
Yeah, mine too.
It got blocked.
So that must be safe to click on that link.
Hey, take a risk. Why not?
Hey,
boy.
Great show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for setting that up, Adam. That was good.
Yes,
High energy. Thank you. And thanks to everybody. So I just wanted to put my thanks in.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So thank all of you guys. Thank everybody in the audience for great questions and interactions this week. And see you all next week, I hope.
Bye.
Some might say.